Grandpa, I heard Mom and Dad talking. They want to take your house and money after the party, my 9-year-old granddaughter Sophie whispered, her small hand clutching my sleeve. Her innocent words hit me like a bolt of lightning, splintering the warm illusion of family love I'd clung to. I had always trusted my only son and his wife completely, never imagining they could scheme behind my back. "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart," I whispered back. Inside, turmoil raged, hurt, disbelief, and a simmering anger. But I couldn't let it show. Not here, not during her birthday celebration. With a steadying breath, I excused myself from the party early, feigning a sudden headache to mask the storm inside me. In the end, I would beat them at their own game and teach them a lesson about family and loyalty they would never forget. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. That afternoon had started so normally, giving no hint of the betrayal about to unfold. I remember arriving at my son Eric's home just a few hours earlier, balancing a brightly wrapped gift and a casserole dish that my daughter-in-law Julie had requested I bring. It was my granddaughter Sophie's 9th birthday, and I'd been looking forward to it all week. Eric and Julie's house was a charming 2-story in a quiet suburb, the same house I'd helped them buy a decade ago. My savings and co-signed loan had secured the down payment, something I'd been proud to do as a father. As I walked up the driveway, I couldn't help but notice the freshly painted shutters and the new luxury SUV parked out front. Expensive touches like those had cropped up ever since Julie came into our lives. A pang of wistfulness tugged at me. My late wife Helen would have loved to see how well our son was apparently doing. The front door swung open almost as soon as I knocked. Sophie squealed with delight when she saw me, her curly brown hair flying as she launched herself into my arms. "Grandpa," she cried, hugging me tight. I laughed and hugged her back. "Happy birthday, my little star." Over Sophie's shoulder, I saw Eric and Julie hovering in the foyer. "Hey, Dad," Eric said, offering a quick smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked a bit tense, his sandy hair neatly combed and a new streak of gray at his temple I hadn't seen before. Julie stood beside him with a bright, practiced smile. "So glad you could make it, Frank," Julie said, giving me a perfunctory peck on the cheek as I stepped inside. The scent of her strong floral perfume lingered. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied. I handed the gift to Sophie, who bounced on her toes with excitement. "Go put that with your other presents, sweetie," Julie told her daughter, smoothing a bow on Sophie's dress. "We'll open them after cake." Sophie scampered off, and I set my casserole dish down on the kitchen counter. Julie turned to me, her voice overly bright. "Can I get you something to drink, Frank? We have lemonade, iced tea, or I can make coffee if you'd like." "Lemonade is fine, thanks," I replied. As Julie poured me a glass, I heard little footsteps and Sophie's voice behind me. "Grandpa, come play pin the tail on the donkey with us." I chuckled and obliged, letting her drag me into the fun. Over the next hour I played the jovial grandfather, pinning tails on donkeys. Sophie helped me miss on purpose, to the kids' delight, supervising a messy slime-making project in the backyard, and leading a loud chorus of "Happy Birthday" as Julie brought out the cake. Even Jake, who lingered at the sidelines, cracked a smile watching his grandpa hop around with the kids. Even amid the fun, I noticed Eric and Julie exchanging tense whispers at the edges of the room. Once, as I passed by with a tray of cake, I overheard Eric murmur, "Did you find the papers?" and saw Julie shoot him a sharp look and whisper, "Not now." I furrowed my brow at that cryptic exchange, but before I could dwell on it, Sophie tugged at my arm with a plate of cake for me, demanding my attention again. When most of the cake had been devoured and the children migrated to the backyard for an improvised soccer game, with Jake valiantly acting as referee, I found a moment to catch my breath. I stepped aside into the quiet hallway by the stairs, savoring a rare lull in the commotion. I could see into the living room from where I stood. Eric was ushering the last of the neighbor kids' parents to the door, thanking them for coming. Julie was tidying up empty paper cups and plates with a forced smile that dropped as soon as guests turned away. They looked exhausted, but beneath that, something else, nerves. Anticipation. I wasn't sure. Just then, I felt a light tug on my sleeve. Sophie stood behind me, her hazel eyes wide and serious, so unlike the jubilant birthday girl of minutes ago. "Grandpa, can we talk?" she asked softly. "Of course, sweetheart." I bent down, surprised at her tone. "Everything okay?" She glanced toward the living room, where her parents were out of earshot, then back at me. "I heard Mommy and Daddy arguing last night," she whispered. "They didn't know I was awake." A cold prickle of dread traveled up my spine. "Arguing? About what?" Sophie bit her lip, looking exactly like her father did when he was anxious as a child. "About you." My heart gave a single heavy thump. I knelt to meet her eyes. "What about me, honey?" She leaned in close, her voice barely above a breath. "Mom said after my party, they want to talk to you about signing some papers. She said that way they can take care of your house and money, for the future. But Dad got mad and said it was like stealing and he didn't want to do it. Then Mom yelled that it was the only way since you won't just give them anything yet. She said, once it's signed, he can't take it back." I felt the color drain from my face. Each of Sophie's words struck like a hammer. Stealing. Once it's signed, he can't take it back. Sophie's eyes were shiny with worry. "I thought you should know, Grandpa." "Did I do bad telling you?" For a moment I couldn't speak. I just stared at my granddaughter, this sweet, innocent child caught in something far beyond her understanding. Finally I managed to squeeze her shoulder. "You did exactly the right thing, Sophie. Thank you for telling me. Are you mad?" Her voice trembled. I pulled her into a hug, my throat tight. "No, darling. I'm not mad at you at all. I'm grateful. You were very brave to tell me." She hugged me back, then pulled away to search my face. "I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, my little star." Over her shoulder, I saw Eric looking around the room as if wondering where we'd gone. Gently, I stroked Sophie's hair. "How about this, we keep what you heard as our little secret for now, okay? Don't say anything to Mommy or Daddy." Sophie nodded solemnly. "Okay." I forced a reassuring smile. "Good girl. Now, why don't you go play for a bit? I'll be right out." She gave me one more quick squeeze, then scampered off to join her friends. I stood up, my legs a touch unsteady. The shock and anger were starting to settle into a cold resolve. They really were plotting against me, moving me out, taking control of everything I'd built over a lifetime. And they would have succeeded too, if not for the warning of a child who loved me. I took a long, slow breath and stepped into the living room. Eric spotted me and came over, concern creasing his brow. "Dad, you okay? You look a little pale." I mustered a weak chuckle. "I'm fine. Just a bit tired. Actually." I grimaced and rubbed my forehead for effect. "I hate to do this, but I think I should head home. I'm not feeling quite myself." Julie appeared at Eric's side, eyes narrowing slightly. "Oh, no. Really, Frank? We haven't even opened presents yet." "I'm so sorry," I said, rubbing my temple. "I promise I'll make it up to Sophie later. I just need to lie down." Husband and wife exchanged a quick, telling glance. Irritation. Panic. They were definitely not happy that I was leaving early. Eric cleared his throat. "We were, hoping to chat with you after the party about some family planning stuff." Julie gave him a sharp look, then turned a sweet but tense smile to me. "Nothing urgent. But yes, we did want to discuss a few things, maybe later this week." She was clearly trying to act nonchalant, but I could hear the strain underneath. They were worried I might slip out of their grasp. I made a show of stifling a yawn. Sure, later this week is fine. I'm sorry, kids. I really do need to rest. Eric looked like he wanted to protest, but instead he just said, "All right, Dad. If you're sure." Julie forced that smile a little wider. "Feel better, Frank. And don't worry about cleanup or anything." I assured them I'd be fine and said quick goodbyes to Jake and to Sophie, with a meaningful little wink to let her know things were okay. In minutes, I was walking out into the late afternoon sun, my mind racing even as I kept my pace measured and casual. I could feel their eyes on my back until I got into my car. Only when I'd driven around the corner did I let my facade crumble. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I pulled over for a moment, trying to calm the adrenaline surging through me. Anger and hurt roiled in my gut. My own son and his wife, plotting to strip me of my home and autonomy like vultures picking a carcass. The betrayal cut deep into my soul. As I drove the rest of the way home, memories flashed through my mind in a blur of emotions. After Helen, my wife of nearly 40 years, died 3 years ago, I had poured everything into helping Eric and his family. It was how I coped with my grief, by taking care of the people we both loved. Helen had always been the glue holding us together. When she was gone, I tried my best to fill that role. I thought of the countless sacrifices I'd made without hesitation. Co-signing their mortgage and quietly paying half the monthly note when Eric was struggling at work. Covering Julie's medical bills last year when she needed surgery that insurance didn't fully cover. Paying the exorbitant private school tuition for the kids because Julie insisted they deserved the best education. The numbers added up to well over $100,000 I'd given them in the past few years alone. I never held any of it against them, until now. I did it out of love, because seeing them safe and happy was worth every penny. But maybe I'd made a terrible mistake. Had I inadvertently taught them that I was an endless resource, an ATM rather than a father? In hindsight, Julie had always kept a polite distance. Perhaps she never truly saw me and Helen as family, maybe just obstacles, or means to an end. By the time I pulled into my driveway, twilight was creeping in. My modest house, the home where Helen and I raised Eric, sat quiet and still, the porch light glowing warmly. I sat in the car a minute, the echoes of the birthday party laughter ringing hollow now. What a farce, I thought bitterly. Finally I forced myself out of the car. My knees ached as I climbed the steps, whether from age or what I'd learned today. Inside, the house was silent. I turned on a lamp in the living room, eyes landing on the framed photograph of Helen on the mantel. Her kind eyes and gentle smile looked back at me. "I should have seen this coming, Helen," I murmured into the stillness, voice shaking. "How did our family end up like this?" Of course, there was no answer. I lowered myself into my armchair, feeling far older than my 64 years. For a moment, I allowed a few hot tears to escape, grieving not only the loss of trust in my son, but the loss of the life I thought we still shared. But I couldn't afford to wallow for long. I scrubbed the tears away with the heel of my hand. There was work to do, a betrayal to confront, a legacy to protect. I hauled a binder of important documents out from under a stack of magazines on the coffee table. After Helen died, I'd meticulously organized our estate papers, will, deed, insurance policies, keeping them up to date. I flipped to my will, stomach clenching as I saw Eric's name listed as primary beneficiary. Everything to my son, it said, with small trusts for the grandkids. Back when I wrote it, it was simply an act of love. Now, it felt like an invitation for them to exploit me. No. That would have to change. Immediately. The next morning, I met with my attorney, Alan. I told him everything. By noon, I had signed a new will and trust. My entire estate would go into a trust for Sophie and Jake's future, and Eric and Julie would receive nothing except a token $1 each. It was a drastic step, but I knew it was the only way to protect myself and my grandchildren. With my affairs secure, I prepared to confront my son and daughter-in-law with what I knew. That afternoon, I called Eric. Hi, Eric. I struggled to keep my tone neutral. How's everything? How's Sophie? I'm sorry I left in a rush yesterday. She's fine. We saved you some cake, he said after a pause. He sounded wary. Are you feeling better? A bit. Listen, I continued lightly, about that thing you wanted to discuss. You mentioned doing it later this week, but maybe we could just talk today. If you're free, maybe you and Julie could come by my house this evening. There was a silence. I imagined him covering the phone to confer with Julie. After a few seconds, he replied, yeah, we can do that. Maybe around 7, after dinner. 7 works. Does that give you enough time to gather the papers you wanted me to look at? I couldn't resist adding that hint. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had that forced casualness. Yeah. We'll bring everything. Good, I said softly. I'll see you both then. Okay. See you later, Dad. When I hung up, I realized my hands had clenched into fists. I slowly exhaled the breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. So, they still intended to go through with it, whatever exactly it was. They had no idea I was already a step ahead. I spent the rest of the afternoon setting the stage. In the dining room, I laid out coffee cups and a pot of fresh coffee, as if this were just a friendly meeting. I placed the new will and trust documents in a folder on the table, alongside a copy of my old will for comparison. If all went according to plan, those would come into place soon enough. Dusk was falling when I saw their car pull up outside. My heart thudded against my ribs. I took a steadying breath and reminded myself that I was prepared. A moment later, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Eric and Julie standing together on the porch. They both attempted polite smiles. Hi Dad, Eric said. Feeling better? A bit, I replied. Come on in. They stepped inside. I noticed Julie clutching a manila envelope against her side. We moved to the dining room and took our seats, me at the head of the table, Eric and Julie side by side. The atmosphere was painfully awkward for a moment, everyone trying to act normal while knowing exactly why we were here. I broke the silence. So, you wanted to discuss some plans? I kept my tone easy. Yes, Julie said quickly, jumping in with that too bright chirpiness she used when she was nervous. We've been thinking about the future, and about you. We just want to make sure you're taken care of, given your heart scare last year and all. I raised an eyebrow. I had a minor angina episode over a year ago, nothing serious. They'd hardly shown concern at the time, but now it was convenient for their narrative. Julie continued, words tumbling out in a rehearsed spiel. What we mean is, the house is a lot to maintain, and you're living all alone now. We were thinking it might be easier for you to move somewhere smaller, like a nice retirement community where you'd have less to worry about. And we could help with managing things, your bills and such, so you wouldn't have any stress. I just listened, expression neutral. Eric was looking down at his hands, he hadn't said a word yet. Julie pressed on. We actually did some research and found a wonderful senior living place not far from here. And, since we'd need to handle selling the house and organizing finances for that, we thought it might be simplest if you made us, She cleared her throat delicately, power of attorney. Just to help with paperwork and such. Despite everything, I almost admired her audacity, trying to frame this as if it were all for my benefit. I leaned back slightly. Sell the house. Move me into assisted living. That's quite the plan. It's just a suggestion, of course, Julie said quickly. We only want what's best for you. My gaze shifted to Eric. And what do you think, son? He finally looked up, and I saw real guilt in his eyes. Dad, we just don't want you to have to worry about things, he said, but the conviction in his voice was lacking. You've done so much for us, we figured we could, take on some responsibility now. To give you a break. I let the silence hang for a moment, then I nodded slowly. I see. And to give me this break, you want me to sign control of my assets over to you too. Is that right? Julie blinked, caught off guard by my bluntness. Frank, that's a rather harsh way to put it. We wouldn't say control, but that's what it is, isn't it? I interjected, my voice still calm but now with an unmistakable edge. Power of attorney. Selling my home out from under me. Taking charge of my money. Eric ran a hand through his hair, face anguished. Dad, please, we were just thinking of making things easier for you, easier for me. By assuming I'm incapable of managing my own life. I shook my head, feeling the first sparks of anger crack through my facade. The truth, please. Why are you really doing this? Julie bristled. I don't like what you're implying. I fixed her with a stare. I'm implying that you're trying to take everything I've worked my life for, Julie. And not after I'm gone, now, while I'm still very much here. Her composure cracked. We are trying to help you, and help the family. She snapped. It's called estate planning, Frank. Being responsible before something bad happens. But I guess you'd rather let everything fall into chaos. I turned my gaze to my son. Eric, do you honestly think I need this kind of help right now? He swallowed, not meeting my eyes. I was worried about you, Dad, he mumbled. I thought maybe you'd actually feel relieved not having to worry about bills and things. Julie shot him a glare. Stop it, Eric. We agreed this is what's best. She looked at me, chin lifting defiantly. It's not like we're cutting you out of your own life. You'd be comfortable in a retirement community, and we'd manage the rest efficiently. Many families do this. A cold, grim smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Efficiently. Yes, I'm sure you have it all figured out. I leaned forward and spoke clearly. I know what you've been planning. Did you think I was completely oblivious? They both froze. Julie's face went ashen. Eric looked like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Julie's voice wavered. I'm not sure what you mean, Frank. I mean, I said, enunciating each word, that I know about your little scheme to have me sign papers giving you power of attorney and control of my assets. I know you were going to try to push me into a home and take ownership of this house and everything else. Eric's head snapped up, eyes wide. Julie's carefully cultivated calm shattered. Who told you that? She blurted, then immediately regretted it. She was confirming the truth without me even needing to say Sophie's name. My disappointment and fury flared together. I looked between them, these two adults who I had loved and supported, and I laid it out. My granddaughter heard you, I said flatly. She heard you plotting to betray me. Julie sucked in a sharp breath and started to speak, but I held up my hand to silence her. No more lies, I said sternly. No excuses. I devoted my life to helping you both. And you repay me by conspiring to strip away my independence and steal my home while I'm in good health and sound mind? You ought to be ashamed. Eric covered his face with his hands. Dad. I'm sorry, he choked out. I never wanted to hurt you. Tears glinted in his eyes, and for a split second I saw in him the little boy who used to cling to my pant leg when he was scared. Julie, on the other hand, squared her shoulders. We were not trying to steal from you, she said, voice shaking with anger. We were trying to make sure things didn't get messy later. And yes, maybe benefit a little too, because God knows we could use the help. Is that so evil? We are your family. Who else would you leave everything to? Apparently now, it's going to be my grandchildren, I replied coldly. Their eyes widened at that. I stood and reached for the folder I'd placed on the table. My heart was pounding, but I kept my hand steady as I opened it and spread out the documents inside. This, I said, is my new estate plan. I had it drawn up this morning. Julie grabbed one of the papers and quickly scanned it, her hand trembling. Eric peered over her shoulder. What is this?" she stammered. "It's a new will," I informed them. "One that revokes any previous arrangements. As of now, everything I have will be placed in trust for Sophie and Jake. For their education, their futures. You too." I nodded at a clause, "Get $1 each." $1. Eric looked thunderstruck. Julie dropped the will as if it burned her. You cut us out," she gasped. "Considerate consequences," I said quietly. "For your actions." "Dad, please." Eric reached out toward me, but I could see he was at a complete loss for words. Julie's face contorted, fury and disbelief warring across her features. "How could you do that to your own son? After everything we've done for you." I gave a bitter laugh. "Everything you've done for me? Let's list those things: isolating me, manipulating me, trying to take over my life. Yes, what shining acts of devotion." Julie's eyes flashed. "We took you in on holidays, we included you." "Stop it," Eric suddenly snarled, shocking both of us. He turned to his wife. "Just stop, Julie. This has gone too far." She gaped at him. "You're taking his side now? After all this?" His shoulders slumped. "We were wrong," he muttered. "I was wrong. We never should have tried to. I never should have agreed to any of this." Julie's expression twisted in contempt. "Oh, sure, now you grow a conscience," she spat. "What about our debts, Eric? The mortgage? The credit cards? Your father just cut us off completely. How are we supposed to? Enough." My voice rang with a finality that cut through their bickering. I had never spoken to them so sternly. They both fell silent, looking at me. "This conversation is over," I continued. "The new will is signed and legally binding. Copies are with my lawyer. You cannot change what I've done." Julie opened her mouth, but I held up my hand again. "I'm not going to apologize for protecting myself. Frankly, I only regret not doing it sooner." Her eyes brimmed with angry tears. "You're unbelievable," she hissed. I turned to Eric. He stood there, head bowed, tears slipping down his face. "I never wanted it to come to this," I told him, my tone softening. "But I can't trust you right now, son. You destroyed that trust. Whether you ever earn it back is up to you." He nodded miserably, swiping at his cheeks. "I know. I know. I'm so sorry, Dad." I nodded in acknowledgement. "I hope you are. And I hope you both think long and hard about what really matters in life. Because from where I'm standing, it sure doesn't seem like family means much to either of you at the moment." Julie let out a little sob of frustration and turned on her heel. "We're done here." "Yes, we are," I agreed. "You should go now." Eric hesitated, looking like he wanted to say more, but in the end he simply whispered, "I'm sorry," one more time and guided Julie by the elbow toward the door. She snatched up the envelope they'd brought, their power of attorney forms, no doubt, and stormed out ahead of him without another glance my way. I followed them to the front door. Julie marched straight to the car. Eric lingered for a second on the porch. He looked back at me, eyes red and full of regret. "I do love you, Dad," he managed to say. I held the door, my expression weary and sad. "I love you too, Eric. But love isn't the same as trust." He hung his head and turned to go. I closed the door behind them firmly, the lock clicking with a sense of grim finality. In the silence that followed, my strength suddenly gave out. I slumped against the door, feeling more drained than I had in years. My own son, my only child. How did we come to this? As I sank into my armchair once more, an immense emptiness opened inside me. In the span of a single evening, I felt as though I'd lost my son and daughter-in-law, though truth be told, maybe I'd been losing them bit by bit for a long time. Late the next afternoon, I heard a small knock at my front door. To my surprise, it was Sophie, still in her school uniform and clutching her backpack. Her eyes were uncertain. "Grandpa?" "Daddy said you wanted to see me," she said in a small voice. I immediately knelt down to hug her. Seeing my granddaughter on my doorstep felt like the sun breaking through clouds. "Come in, sweetheart," I said softly. We settled on the couch, her backpack tossed to the side. She looked around as if expecting to see her parents lurking, then focused on me. "Are you okay, Grandpa?" she asked. "Mom and Dad were really mad. Did I cause trouble by telling you?" My heart squeezed. "No, my dear. You did nothing wrong," I assured her, gently taking her hand. "Your mom and dad made some bad choices about money, and there had to be consequences. But none of that is your fault. And none of it changes how much I love you. Okay?" She nodded, biting her lip. "Are they in trouble?" I chose my words carefully. "They have to work very hard to earn back trust and to take better care of themselves, and of you. If they succeed, maybe our family can heal from this hurt. And if they don't..." I squeezed her hand. "You and I will always have each other, no matter what." Sophie leaned into me and wrapped her arms around my middle. I held her close, closing my eyes as a wave of relief and love washed over me. In her hug, I felt Helen's presence somehow, the same warmth and unconditional support that had carried me through the darkest times. "Daddy said something about a trust?" Sophie asked quietly after a moment. "That you made sure me and Jake have college money or something." I smiled and brushed a curl from her face. "That's right. I've made special arrangements so that you and your brother will be able to go to any college you want. Or pursue whatever dreams you have. You won't have to worry about money for that." Her eyes widened. "Really? Even if I want to be an artist?" "Dad says artists don't make much money." I chuckled softly. "Especially if you want to be an artist. Or a doctor, or a teacher, or anything. Whatever you decide to do, there will be funds to help you do it." Sophie gave a small, content sigh and rested her head against my chest. "I'm glad," she murmured. Then, more anxiously, "You're not going to have to move away, are you? Mom was talking about some home." I gently shushed her worry. "No, I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, and I'm staying right here." She relaxed again. After a moment, she looked up at me with a tentative smile. "Grandpa? Can we bake those sugar cookies I like? The ones from Grandma's recipe?" A grin spread over my face. How long had it been since I baked cookies with my granddaughter? "I think that's a wonderful idea," I said. "We have all the time in the world for that." Hand in hand, we headed to the kitchen. Outside, the late sun poured golden light through the window, illuminating the little drawing Sophie had pinned on my fridge last week, a crayon sketch of our family, with Grandpa and Sophie drawn holding hands in bright purple crayon. Bittersweet as the last day had been, in that moment I felt hopeful. My family might have been fractured, but the bond one shared with my grandchildren remained unbroken. As we mixed dough and Sophie giggled at the flour I got on my nose, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. And in the garden just outside, Helen's roses swayed gently in the breeze, finally beginning to bloom again.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.